I now ask all the speakers to come in front, because we have a little bit more than 10 minutes for discussion.
For Riitta Rahkonen in particular, but it feeds into some of the other ones as well. You showed the slide with the fish farms making losses. Now, is that foreseen to become changes in the cost structure, ultimately lowering them, or is the hope that the price will increase and solve the problem on the long? So where do you see the development and the focus on that? Thank you.
Actually, I'm perhaps not the best person to estimate what happens, but I think it's, of course, price. It's an important, what species do you farm there, and but there's a lot of sort of development work still needed and research how to cut the costs. Of course, it's obvious that the returns cannot be negative for many years. There are investors also in these big facilities, so it's not only that the owners' own money involved, but of course those investors, they are interested to have return something. But perhaps I don't know if the guys there, Markus or Antti, could help me.
Yes, Markus Kankainen from Luke, and that's true that there is some profitability problems with RAS farms have been. They are not new systems. They have been developed since 80s, and they are coming there. They are getting more profitable, but still, I would say that only RAS farms, as I know, are profitable, that are, yes, producing some more valuable species, or like in Norway, they produce fingerlings for the large offshore farms. So it's kind of part of the production chain, and then it works, even though it's a little bit more expensive to produce those fish, but the competitiveness comes from the seaside. So it's part of the chain, and therefore I wouldn't even kind of compare those systems. They work in their own environment and for some specific species, I would say. So it's when we produce kind of daily consumed products, edible fish, so then it comes perhaps not viable way to produce food. Okay.
Good. Is there any more questions?
Vincent Estberg. Thank you. Is the fisheries sector competing with itself? I'm thinking about the wild fisheries contra the aquaculture. Are we making a demand after cultivated fish that kills the traditional fisheries?
What do you think? Well, perhaps I say something, because I think in Finland there is hardly, I cannot see no competition between aquaculture and fisheries. But are there other opinions?
No, I agree with you. It seems that especially when it comes to the fish, so wild fish, everything is bought that enters the stores, basically. And so I don't think Luke has found any competition there. Does anybody disagree here? No, everybody's doing like this.
Antti goes first.
Oh no, Antti.
The roughest competition may come from abroad.
Yes, exactly.
That we get a lot of fish from Norway, which we could actually produce ourselves and fish from the seas by ourselves.
I repeat to those who don't hear that Antti Kause, researcher from Luke, said that the competition may come from abroad, mainly from Norway, so that we import a lot of salmon from Norway, Norwegian salmon, and that we could produce also in Finland. And Lari wants to say now something.
Yes, actually, if we go to 1970s or 1960s and earlier time when we had no fish farming in Finland and no import from outside our country, I guess there was a market for species like bream, some roach species also, other species that are not so valuable at the moment but are talked a lot that are species that should be eaten in future because we have viable stocks of those. So in that sense we can think that there's competition between the fish farming, fish produced in Norway, maybe fish produced also in Finnish coastal areas. But I guess it's also a matter of price because the wild fish is pretty expensive at the moment. So it's too expensive compared to farmed fish. So it's easier to buy the farmed fish, and it's also like a good fish to eat. So if we compare between roach or other that kind of less valuable fish, maybe there's kind of a balance between what is available and what is worth of price and so on. So can't really say about that, but before it was not like this, the fish consumption.
Okay, just a follow-up. I might add that I'm a huge fan of fried herring, and I find it difficult sometimes to get the herring fillets in the stores, especially now in autumn. And talking to the fishermen, they all say that they sell it for making food for fish farms. So that was my question. So is there a way to regulate this so that I can get my fried herring?
So actually seems that there is no competition between farmers and fishermen, but there is a competition between farmers and consumers. What could I say? Was it 4% that goes from the herring stock goes to human consumption? Mostly it goes to feed for fur animals. And of course there is a lot of work that we increase the amount of, let's say, herring for consumption. And the herring, there has been sort of for a long time, bad sort of reputation of herring because of dioxins and etc. But it's getting better and better, and so there will be sort of, I hope, rehabilitation of Baltic herring.
Can the chair add something? That it's also, we have a new system for the quotas now, and nowadays they are fishermen-based quotas, and we are hoping that this will eventually help it, so that there wouldn't be this sort of competition to fish as fast as they can early year when maybe the quality of the fish is not as good as the customers want, when it would end up on the customer plates. But of course, this year, which was the first year when the quota system was operating, we maybe didn't succeed as well as we were hoping with the system, but there are great hopes that this system will in the coming years work better and better, and so we would have a larger portion of the catch ending up on the customers. customer plates, and also it would be a good quality fish. So that's the aim. And we are also working a lot on the image issue of Baltic herring to make it something that the customers would actually eat. And then I think there are also this value-added side is an important thing, that we have to be able to develop the herring catch to that kind of forms that the customers actually want to eat. So not only just silakkapihvi, but something else more complicated as well. Yeah. Now there were several questions. I'm sorry, I'm stealing the time. There was yes, there.
Hello, I'm Simo Hampää from Uusimaa Regional Council. And Lari, you mentioned that the spawning areas and even nursery areas are quite constrained. And there seems to be these hotspots that are responsible for a large portion of the fish populations. Like this Vaasa region is for perch. How well can you identify those regions or hotspots on a national or regional level these days? Like if you look at the Velmu data, just about all of the shallow bays are marked as nursery areas on those maps. Can you go into more detail?
Basically, based on data, maybe we can go even on more detail, but the scale of Velmu maps is theoretically something like 50 meters, but actually it's in the scale of kilometers, because we have sampling methods that like has a grid of some kilometers, and so it's not like when you have some kind of data point that shows that there should be larvae. It's not. It can be, but it's necessarily so. But the models indicate is that it should be like that in a scale of something like 80 or 90% almost. But and the models are also larval stages for birds, for example, and pike birds. So they are moving. So it's a bit different than an actual spawning site, which is in a smaller scale. So if you look at the maps, and in the maps they have been identified the most potential locations. So I guess they are quite much like in real life, especially for birds and pike birds. So there should be fish larvae in that areas, and the nursery areas, as I indicated here also in the Vaasa region, the scale of 5 kilometers, it goes like that. They are larger ones. And it's also dependent on coastal area. If you have a large archipelago area with wide inner archipelago zone, which means that there's high temperatures and it's favorable for spawning of fish, then the fish reproduction area can be a much wider. But if you have narrow coastal area like we have in Bothnian Bay in many places, that we have estuary, which is maybe a few kilometers, and then we have open shore, it means that the place for spring spawning species, like for birds, is like much smaller. And this sets also the scale that what we can actually allow for the people to do in different areas. If you have lots of reproduction area, there might be more pressure, but if you have only a small but important one location, it's really important to keep up that location and not to allow any kind of harm for that place. But that's also the problem with this kind of maps and identifying of spawning location or reproduction areas, that it will always need some kind of basic knowledge of this, what's behind the map.
All right. I think there was some more questions, but I'm sorry, I think I have to now cut the discussion and to give you some time to eat your lunch. So please have lunch now and come back after 1 o'clock. We will continue in the next session 1:05. Thank you all.